I think it's time we brought hearts and politics together so we can do it another way.
Politics used to be the politica, polis, is the care for the community through moral, ethical leadership. And economy, which is the how to run the house, ecos is the house, home. So it's like the study, the knowledge about how to run the house. The big perversion that happened since the Industrial Revolution and capitalistic society is that the economy became the paradigm that kind of rules everything. So today, the actual political success of a politician is economics, rather than to just state the priority of human beings. Actually, it's bigger than that. It's the priority of life.
Today's governments, their objective is basically to win the next general election, and therefore there's this short-termism that I have to deliver or to be seen to be delivering over this period of time, whether it be 3, 4, 5 or 6 years. And you cannot build a future of a country on policies that are that short-term.
We have to take responsibility for the world as individuals. We've got to make this world a more secure place, and you don't do that by diverting money into bombers and new arms technologies and invasions. You do that by setting up a way for the world to work, which is democratic, truly democratic and fair.
And that's about building people's capacity to have sustainable communities. It's about ensuring that the international framework for resolving dispute is strengthened. It's making sure that we don't have a breakout of nuclear weapons capacity, both in the region and worldwide. And it's about looking much more closely at those very clearly identified conflict resolution mechanisms and strategies that countries can and have in the past successfully entered into to try and prevent war. If you want a really good example of the spirit of peace and reconciliation and conflict resolution, look at the way in which Mandela and Tutu dealt with what happened in South Africa when apartheid finished. And they didn't go out of their way to punish other people and to take revenge. They went out of their way to create an instrument of peace, but which also had justice attached to it, which is equally important. It was about saying, we're not here to punish and take revenge. We're here to acknowledge what has happened in the past, to understand that future and further violence is not the way forward, to agree that, to make declarations, to have people apologise and acknowledge loss and hurt, and then we can move on.
White people don't know nothing about Aboriginal people, and Aboriginal people nothing about white people. I am a full-blood Australian Aboriginal. Well, white man government said I'm a citizen. What's that mean? How come I'm a citizen in Australia? Which I born, which I belong to Australia. I'm more than citizen. I'm a landowner. You think about it. Well, black people should have a royalty for this, what developments of Australia. If each tribe living in Australia, royalty from the government, so I can build our house and earn our money and runs our business and show, just like everyone else is doing it.
This country and their custodianship of it is something we're all obliged to give something back to. That needs a national act of reconciliation, which goes beyond just the words and puts back the honour in our, not just our history, but in our existing culture, in our life.
We must find ways, as difficult as it is, of recognising that we can't deal with the clashes that we have, or the competitions that we have, or the disagreements that we have, just by hitting one another over the head.
That's probably one of the reasons why war has happened, is because people want to create that change by force and from the outside, rather than stopping and looking at, well, what can I do from an individual perspective. We need to make that change ourselves and see what there is available for us and work with it in our own fields.
We need to to put our money, I think at least, in awareness and to learn from kindergarten up how to process not just peace, but to make conflict into relationship, into good relationship.
To look at the technology of peace. It's about creating ways of talking and ways of thinking that are different from the ways of talking and thinking that lead us to war. It's the only technology we have. So how do you talk about what's going on? How do you use a term like terrorist? If a child says to you, what's a terrorist? What do you say back to that child? And all of these interactions are the way that we create the climates of meaning through which we live our lives.
You can't change what happened, yesterday, last week, 100 years ago, whenever it is, but you can change what happens in the future. If we can overcome that, you can start to overcome the divide and rule, and once you overcome that, I think you can start to focus on where we want to be.
Now, Australia could take a lead here. We are wealthy, we are democratic, we are strong. What is to stop us becoming the new Switzerland? What is to stop us becoming the new Norway, only much more powerful? What is to stop us from setting a lead for the rest of the world in terms of our ability to go and offer to help settle disputes? The time is now, and we all have to make our decision about how we're going to contribute to it.
You can write to members of Parliament. You can agitate with your local newspapers or with the national newspapers. Join political parties and argue within the ranks of the political parties. You can stand for Parliament. With other people, try and form new political alliances, even a new political party. Target people who've taken a particularly harsh view in their electorates and try and persuade their electorate that such people ought to be opposed. Now, if you can get enough Australians taking these sorts of actions, then in the end there'll be a change.
You want your kids, to live in a world where there's not this threat or fear of war or terrorist acts, and we're actually dealing with things and engaging people who might look different and might have different beliefs, but engaging with them about what the differences are and actually having an appreciation of that, but also a level of respect that's reciprocated for, why we're different, but that's okay.
Just knocking on the next door neighbour that maybe we've never knocked on and said, come join me for a cup of coffee. Because really, it begins with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. That's how we start putting these values into our children and into ourselves. And into our mouths as well. Yeah, one more.
We will have our differences unless we learn how to respect those differences in order to find the common denominator of humanity in all of us. We will never succeed. Find that, and you will.
This film has given me so much, and to feel from my heart, and I learned to cry, and I never realised that I missed out on so much.
Those days of that great surge of feeling around the planet will be looked back on in history as the day the world started getting together and global people power starting to express itself. Suddenly we do have a global community which is on the move. Suddenly mass communications means mass movements. There is this global connectedness with a humanity that has a heart.
Unless you choose to coexist, you cannot exist. It's the nature of life. It's from a Muslim point of view, it's from a human being's point of view, it's from a British point of view, an Australian point of view.
You and me, we are one red blood.
No one in this world can say, I don't share that. We're all in the same circle of life.
Can't hide, we'll get you in the end. The hugs and the kisses will get you.
That is a very hopeful sign for the future.
Now you're talking, Padre.
To remember, we never forget. And it's always been our song that's been handed by our forefathers. Today we still got it. No, we're not lost. We still got it.
The spiritual is still there for you and me, for everyone, for us to listen and put the music on first, to teach our kids. We gotta think about your ancestors. They're there, they're waiting for you. They're still waiting. You left them behind.